Okay, so buckle up, because this story sounds like one of those twisted fake posts you'd scroll past on Reddit thinking, nah, that's too crazy to be real. But I swear on everything, this actually happened. My name is Riley, I'm 20 years old, and my boyfriend, or, well, you'll see, is named Noah. We've been together for almost a year and a half, and for most of that time, he and my older brother Jake got along really well. Jake's 26, and kind of the wild child in the family, super charming, impulsive, can't hold down a relationship to save his life, but still somehow always gets forgiven for everything. Classic Jake. Noah, on the other hand, is the complete opposite, calm, collected, always planning ahead. That's actually one of the things I loved about him when we first met in college. He made me feel safe, like I could actually count on someone for once. Anyway, this all started during spring break. Noah invited me to spend the week at his place back home. He grew up about 4 hours away from campus, and I had never met his family before, so it felt like a big step. He talked a lot about his mom, Denise, who raised him as a single parent. She's in her early 40s, runs her own wellness studio, and according to Noah, she was his best friend and role model. I was nervous, of course, because what girlfriend isn't when meeting the mom? But I was also excited. I packed cute outfits, even brought her a little gift, one of those fancy soy candles. It was going to be perfect. Or so I thought. Jake, my brother, happened to be in town for work and offered to drive me there. Noah was fine with it. He had met Jake a few times and always said he was hilarious, though I could tell he also found him a bit too much sometimes. The plan was for Jake to drop me off and head out, but then Denise invited him to stay for dinner. From that very first dinner, something felt off. Not in a creepy way, not even in a flirty way at first. But there was this odd energy between them. Like, a weird vibe that I couldn't place. They laughed a little too hard at each other's jokes, and Jake, who is usually borderline inappropriate, was suddenly being respectful. Like weirdly thoughtful. Holding doors open, offering to help clean up. I brushed it off. Maybe he was just trying to be polite because he was in someone else's house. It's rare, but not impossible. Jake ended up staying overnight because Denise offered to let him crash in the guest room. I was a bit surprised, but again, I didn't want to be rude, and Denise seemed genuinely hospitable. I remember texting my best friend that night joking, if Jake tries to bang Noah's mom, I will jump off a cliff. She replied with a dozen laughing emojis and a, he better not. Yeah. Famous last words. The next morning, I woke up and Noah had already gone for a run. He's one of those people. I went down to the kitchen to get some coffee, and Denise was already up, looking way too put together for 8 a.m. I don't know what exactly triggered my gut, but I felt uneasy. She was glowing. Like, post-date glow. And then Jake walked in. Shirtless. Wearing pajama pants that I know he hadn't packed. I just stared at him, and he had this smug little smile. The kind he always wears when he knows he's stirred the pot. I asked, did you sleep in? And he shrugged, saying, yeah, the bed was comfy. Then Denise chimed in, he's welcome anytime. I laughed. It was nervous, fake. But deep down, I already knew. That night, I confronted Jake while we were walking to get snacks. I asked him straight up, are you hooking up with Noah's mom? He looked at me for a second and said, it just happened. No remorse. No panic. Just 3 words that made my stomach drop. I yelled at him in the middle of the sidewalk. People stared. I didn't care. He said, it's not like I planned it, alright? She's hot, she's into me, we're adults. I wanted to scream. This wasn't just some random woman. This was Noah's mom. The woman who raised the guy I've been in love with for over a year. This wasn't a hookup, this was betrayal. I didn't even know how to tell Noah. What was I supposed to say? Hey, sorry, my brother is sleeping with your mom? I stayed quiet for the next day and just watched them. Watched the glances, the timing, the almost silent footsteps at night. I knew. But part of me hoped I was wrong. That maybe I had exaggerated it. That maybe it was just an emotional thing and not physical. I was so wrong. I wish I could say that after that awkward dinner things went back to normal, but I'd be lying. Something in the air shifted that night, and I felt it every time we were all in the same room. Jake started acting weird, more defensive, snappy, and he avoided eye contact whenever Noah's name came up. And Denise, well, she started texting me more often. Nothing crazy at first, just little check-ins. But once, she sent me a photo of a new pair of heels and asked if they were too young for her. I remember tilting my head at the screen, thinking, why are you asking me? I showed it to my best friend and she raised an eyebrow. That's a weird vibe, she said. But I brushed it off. I didn't want to believe anything shady could be going on. I mean, this was Noah's mom. And my brother. The thought of anything happening between them was disgusting. One Saturday afternoon, I got a call from Jake asking if he could crash at our place for a few days. He claimed his apartment had plumbing issues. I didn't even question it. He was my brother, and we were always close. When he showed up, though, something about his body language around Denise made my skin crawl. I couldn't pinpoint it, but he was suddenly overpolite. He offered to help her carry groceries, made her tea, even laughed at her terrible jokes. I asked Noah if he noticed anything strange and he just shrugged. He's probably just being respectful. Your mom would like that. I wanted to believe that, but it didn't feel like respect. It felt like tension. The kind that makes you look away but also want to stare, just to confirm you're not imagining things. Then came the night that shattered everything. Noah and I were out for drinks with friends, and we came back earlier than planned because he had a headache. As we stepped inside the house, we immediately heard the TV in the living room playing some rom-com, but that wasn't what stopped us in our tracks. It was the weird silence that followed, like people trying to hide their presence. Noah called out, "Mom," and I yelled, "Jake?" We walked around the corner, and there they were. Sitting on opposite sides of the couch, looking guilty as hell. Their faces were red. Denise had a throw blanket on her lap, and Jake looked like he was adjusting his shirt. Noah furrowed his brows and said, "What are you guys doing?" They both stumbled through lame excuses. "Oh, just watching a movie," Denise said, her voice unnaturally high. "He was telling me about his new job," Jake added, not even looking at us. It was such an obvious lie, and I felt sick to my stomach. That night, I couldn't sleep. My gut was screaming at me that something was wrong. The next day, I told Jake he needed to leave. He didn't argue. He packed up quietly, gave me a tight hug, and muttered, "I'm sorry." I didn't even know what he was apologizing for. Or maybe I did, and I didn't want to admit it to myself yet. After he left, I asked Denise if she and Jake were, you know. She gasped, clutched her chest like I had offended her, and said, "Of course not. He's your brother, Riley." I would never. But I wasn't buying it anymore. I could feel the walls closing in, the little pieces adding up to a very uncomfortable truth I wasn't ready to face. Not yet. After Jake left and Denise denied everything, I told myself I was being paranoid. I really tried to let it go. But something had changed between Noah and me too. He became more distant, more irritable. He said work was stressing him out, but he stopped wanting to hang out, barely touched me anymore, and when I asked if everything was okay, he'd just grunt or say, "I'm tired." I hated how tense everything had gotten. Our home didn't feel like home. It felt like I was walking on eggshells around two people who were hiding something, and slowly dragging me down with them. A couple of weeks later, I was helping Noah move some boxes in the garage when he mentioned his mom had a new friend. I froze. "What kind of friend?" I asked. "She won't say," he shrugged. "But she's been sneaking out at night and coming back all giddy like a teenager." My heart dropped. I asked him if he had any idea who it could be. He said no, but something about his face told me he wasn't so sure. Later that day, I did something I'm not proud of. I checked Jake's Instagram. It had been private for months, but I used my friend's account to look him up. And what I found made my heart sink. A story from 2 days ago, just a few seconds long, showed a candlelit dinner setup for two. I wouldn't have thought much of it, if it weren't for the fact that I recognized the wallpaper. It was Denise's dining room. I had helped her hang that exact wallpaper when she renovated. I took a screenshot and stared at it for probably half an hour, feeling nauseous. I didn't want to believe it, but the evidence was right there. I sent Jake a text. Was that at Noah's mom's house? He didn't reply. The next morning, I showed the photo to Noah. He stared at it for a long time and said nothing. Just silence. Then he stood up, grabbed his keys, and walked out. I didn't hear from him for 2 days. When he finally came back, he looked like he hadn't slept at all. He sat on the edge of the bed and said, she admitted it. I didn't even have to ask who she was. He ran a hand down his face and muttered, they've been sleeping together for over a month. She said she didn't mean for it to happen. That she just connected with him. I felt like the ground was falling out from under me. My brother. And his mom. My boyfriend's mother. What even was this? Noah and I just sat in silence. There was no way to wrap our heads around it. It was too weird, too personal, too painful. I wanted to scream. I wanted to punch Jake. I wanted to throw something through a wall. Instead, I curled into a ball and cried harder than I had in years. Noah tried to comfort me, but I could tell he was barely holding himself together too. I feel like I'm living in a sick soap opera, he whispered. Same, I choked out. Only the writers really hate us. Denise tried to explain herself later. She cornered me in the kitchen and started talking about how she hadn't felt desired in years, how Jake made her feel alive, and how it was all just so unexpected. I stared at her like she had lost her mind. This was my brother, and she was old enough to be his mother, literally. I couldn't believe how selfish she sounded. Not a single word about how it might affect me. Or Noah. Just her feelings. Her loneliness. Her desire. I told her I didn't want to hear it and walked away. Later that week, Jake texted me again. He said he was sorry. That he didn't plan it. That it just happened. I didn't reply. What could I say? Oh, cool, thanks for banging my boyfriend's mom, bro. I felt disgusted. Betrayed. Humiliated. And worst of all, I wasn't even sure what to do with all that. I couldn't talk to anyone about it because who the hell would even believe me? That night, Noah and I sat in bed, and he finally said what we were both thinking. I don't think I can look at her the same way again. I nodded. Me neither. Or Jake. We just stared at the ceiling, both mourning the relationships we had, with each other, with our families, and realizing that nothing was ever going to be the same again. I didn't sleep the night I found out. The image of Jake, my brother, with Denise, Noah's mom, was burned into my mind like a scar that wouldn't fade. I kept replaying it over and over, trying to make it make sense. But it never did. By morning, I was exhausted, puffy-eyed, and still shaking. I decided to confront Jake. No more silence. No more pretending like this was just some awkward misunderstanding. I waited until I heard him come home from his morning run, the door slamming behind him like always. I stepped into the hallway. We need to talk. Now. Jake froze when he saw me. He already knew. He didn't even try to deny it. Riley. I was going to tell you, but... But what? I snapped. You were going to wait until after Christmas? After my engagement? After you slept with her again? He ran a hand through his hair and sighed. It just happened. We didn't plan for it. She was going through stuff, and I guess I was, too. It started as a one-time thing, and then I cut him off. You were sleeping with my boyfriend's mom, Jake. Do you get how insane that is? He looked guilty, sure. But also weirdly defensive. She's not just your boyfriend's mom. She's a person. She listened to me. Treated me like I mattered. That stung more than I wanted it to. Was that a dig at me? Or our family? I stormed off before I said something I'd regret. But the problem was, now I had to talk to Noah. I texted him, "Can we talk? It's about your mom." He called immediately. What's going on? I didn't want to do it over the phone, but there was no good way. So I just blurted it out. Jake and your mom, they've been involved. Silence. Long, terrifying silence. Then, what do you mean, involved? I swallowed. They've been sleeping together. For a while. The sound on the other end was somewhere between a gasp and a broken laugh. You're joking. I wish I was. He hung up. I stared at my phone, half expecting it to ring again. But it didn't. Later that evening, I got a call, not from Noah, but from Denise. I didn't want to answer, but curiosity got the better of me. What do you want? Her voice was calm. Too calm. I figured you knew. I almost dropped the phone. You figured I knew? You're dating my brother, Denise. My 22-year-old brother. Are you kidding me? I'm not dating him, she said sharply. It wasn't about dating. And I'm not going to apologize for something I don't regret. You ruined everything. I didn't ruin anything, she replied. Whatever you and Noah had, that's between you two. Don't pin this on me. I hung up on her. But that didn't stop the storm. Because now, my family knew. Noah's family knew. Jake and I were barely speaking. And Denise, well, she was still texting Jake. The worst part? Noah still hadn't reached out. Noah finally reached out 3 days later. Not a call. Not a knock on the door. Just a text. I need time. I can't look at either of you right now. I didn't blame him. I hated that I understood. But it still shattered something in me. I tried to distract myself by going back to work, pretending life hadn't fallen apart behind the scenes. But nothing worked. Every time my phone buzzed, I hoped it was him. Every time Jake walked into the apartment, I felt sick. We were sharing the same space, but it was like living with a stranger. A stranger who betrayed me in the most twisted, unexpected way possible. Then things got worse. I was getting coffee on my lunch break when I saw Denise. She was sitting at a small table outside the cafe, with Jake. Laughing. Holding his hand. It wasn't just sex. I froze. I didn't even realize I was staring until Jake looked up and saw me. His smile dropped immediately. He tried to stand, to say something, but I turned and walked away. My stomach was in knots. I couldn't believe this was real. That night, I finally confronted him again. It's not just a fling, is it? You're really with her. Jake didn't even deny it. I care about her, Riley. She's Noah's mom. She's old enough to be your mother. She's not my mother. She's Denise. She's been there for me in a way that no one else has. I didn't even know what that meant. It felt like he was living in a completely different world than me. Like we weren't even siblings anymore. I needed clarity, closure, something. So I did the one thing I knew I probably shouldn't. I went to Noah's. He answered the door, but barely looked at me. Noah, please, I said. Talk to me. He let me inside. His apartment looked like a bomb had gone off. Takeout containers, an overturned lamp, couch cushions all over the floor. I just want to understand, I said quietly. He sat down, staring at the ground. You knew how complicated things were with my mom. You knew. She always tried to control everything, my relationships, my choices, my life. And then I finally meet someone who gets me, and she sleeps with your brother. I tried not to cry. I didn't know. I swear, I didn't know until I saw them. I believe you, he said, softer this time. But it doesn't change what happened. Do you still love me? He looked up at me, and in that second, I saw the pain in his eyes. The exhaustion. I don't know. That hurt more than I was ready for. We didn't break up officially that night. But the silence between us felt like a goodbye anyway. A few days later, I got another text. This time from Jake. She wants to make it official. I stared at it, heart pounding. I didn't even know what that meant. I didn't want to know. He followed up. She wants to go public. She wants to tell people we're together. I felt like I couldn't breathe. The thought of Jake and Denise showing up to family events, holidays. God. What if they got married? What if Denise became my sister-in-law? I knew I had to tell someone before I lost my mind. So I called my best friend, Mara, and spilled everything. She listened, shocked and horrified, then said, "You need to cut them off. Both of them. This is toxic. You're trying to manage everyone's feelings except your own." I hated how right she was. So I blocked Jake. For the first time in my life, I chose to not be the peacemaker. I blocked Denise too. And as for Noah, I still couldn't bring myself to delete his number. Even though he hadn't called me once since that night. Even though I knew, deep down, things would probably never be the same. After the initial chaos settled, I knew I had a choice to make: continue spiraling in confusion or actually try to understand what healing might look like for all of us. Noah and I took a break, mutually. There wasn't yelling or slamming doors. Just a quiet conversation on my front porch, both of us sipping tea, realizing that we needed space to process everything without making more emotional messes. I stayed close with Jake. He was embarrassed for a long time, but slowly, we found our sibling rhythm again. He started dating someone else later that year, and it was refreshingly normal. Denise eventually moved out of state. Noah told me they hadn't spoken since the fallout, and I didn't pry. That was his story to work through. We stayed in touch, just as friends, for a while. But over time, we drifted, as people do when they're trying to build new lives that aren't built on past wreckage. Now, years later, I can laugh a little when I think about that time, not because it was funny, but because I made it through without losing myself. The experience taught me that family is complicated, love can be messy, and sometimes the people who hurt us weren't trying to hurt us at all, they just didn't know how to handle their own pain. If you're listening to this and feeling overwhelmed by your own tangled relationships, I just want to say, it gets better. Boundaries help. Distance helps. But more than anything, telling your story, out loud, in your words, can help you move forward. That's what this has been for me. My story, told all the way through. No edits. No shame. Just the truth, finally out there.